So there seems to be a mythology that you are required to do PvP in this game. And Joel answered this yesterday in the Reddit AMA. And he did say, and I like the way they addressed it. He said, I think what we need to do as a company is convey to people the fact that the vast majority of the game is PvE. While the Deep Desert does have PvP in terms of the desert being open, the vast majority of the objectives and things for players to do are not PvP related activities. The players who have rushed to the end game right now are of the mindset that the game requires PvP, and they only want to do PvP, and they haven't done that. So the need is to continue to reinforce to players you don't have to do PvP at all. There are many, like 95% of the game is PvE. So there's a comment I'm going to share with you guys, and I've already written my response to it, but I wanted to make a video for this because this is the mentality that we have to break. We have to break people of this mentality. So Luis Felipe 1972 dropped a comment on my AMA recap that says, yes, a PvE player is forced to go do PvP to be able to finish the game. There is no other way to obtain titanium other than in the PvP areas. How can you make the last outfit in the research tree without titanium? There is no titanium for sale on the server I'm playing on, and if it does appear, it will be for completely stupid prices like the aluminium bar, for which they are asking for more than 20,000 for each. So there's a lot to unpack in this statement. So um, the first part I already addressed, which is you do not need titanium to finish the story of the game, which he claimed. He said to be able to finish the game, there is no other way to obtain. There is no other way to obtain a titanium. You do not need titanium to finish the game. If I can come back in here into the game really quick, and we can look at my character in game, and we can go to my stories tab, into the journals tab, and we can go into the story journal. I have completed all of the story of the game, all of the faction story of the game. The only thing that's left for me is Deep Desert, but I have finished 100% of the story. I have finished 100% of the contracts. I think there's one contract I haven't done, which is this one because it requires a tier 6 cutter ray, which I haven't. I'm not getting that until I get into the Deep Desert. But I have finished all of the story and all of the contract in this game, wearing nothing more than tier 4 gear, tier 4 weapons, and tier 4 gear, which is aluminium. You do not need titanium gear to finish the game. Now, let's address the next part of it saying, but if I want to create all of the gear in the game. So let's go in here and look at, as an example, the last tier of armor, the last tier of weapons. These require titanium to create. You do not need these to complete the story of the game. These are icing on the cake. You do not need these. Funcom, Joel, and Ole have stated in multiple live streams you do not need tier 6 gear to finish the game. You can finish the game in tier 4 and tier 5 gear. I did it in tier 4 gear. I don't have any tier 5 gear yet. I'm 150 hours into the game. You do not need anything beyond tier 4 to do the story. If you want titanium gear, if you want it, that is a you problem. That is a FOMO problem. Fear of missing out. I need the titanium. I must have it because it's there. That's a you thing. I'm not plagued by that disease. So for me, I'm 150 hours in. You know what I'm doing right now with my story, with my quest? We just came to Arakeen and I spent 60,000 on the Atreides skin for my Ornithopter. That's my end game. My end game is cosmetics and skins. Now, if your end game is getting every single item in the research tree unlocked and created, so unlocking every single tier 6 vehicle and getting all of those tier 6 vehicles, that's a you thing, that's a FOMO thing. It's not required by the story. There is no story tied to going and doing all of that stuff in the deep desert. The lands rad is there. You don't have to have tier 6 gear to do the desert. Tier 6 gear is out there for the players who want to do the maximum achievement. I gotta have the best in slot things. And if you have that best in slot mentality, that's fine, but that's a you thing. And you have to recognize that if you're going to pursue that as part of gameplay, that's a you decision. And the gameplay loop to get titanium and to get the tier 6 gear requires you to go into the deep desert. But that is 100% a you problem as a player, not a game forcing you to do something. Because you can finish 100% of the story of this game in tier 4. You could probably even do it in tier 3 gear if you're really, really careful. I didn't really ever feel challenged overly much in tier 4 gear, like playing solo the whole way. I think there was um, a couple of Imperial testing stations where I was like, ooh, and I did die to the radiation out in Sheol because I didn't know about the radiation timer, and then the timer was bugged, so it wasn't showing on my screen. But I never felt challenged in any of the Imperial testing station. You know, I'm wearing heavy armor, tier 4 aluminium heavy armor. Never felt challenged by that content. So you don't need this. Now the other part of the questions is um, there's no titanium for sale on the server I'm playing on, and when it does appear, it's going to be for completely stupid prices. That is tied into the game has only been out for 2 weeks. There are not a lot of players in the deep desert because only about 1% of the player base rushed to the end. So only about 1% of the player base is actively in the deep desert farming tier 6 resources. Those tier 6 resources right now are currently being farmed by guilds to create the carrier thopters and the big thopters for the in-game spice hauls and production. If you're a solo player and you don't want to join a guild, then you have to settle with the fact that it's going to be a little bit before the bulk of the game's population gets to the deep desert and the auction hall gets populated, the exchange, excuse me, gets populated with that tier 6 product. It's a supply and demand thing. Right now, the demand is all being used up. There's no surplus because there's not enough players at the cap right now to provide a surplus for people who don't want to go out there and join a guild and farm it that way. So if you rushed to the end game and you're sitting there and you're complaining that nobody has anything to sell in the auction hall, that's a you problem because you rushed through the game content to get to the end. And what you have to do is realize this is common sense here. It's not we're not asking people to, do anything other than preschool level common sense. If you rushed and you did something as part of the 1% of the player base, and 99% of the player base is still back in aluminium and duraluminum tiers, tier 4 and tier 5, then you're just going to have to wait for the rest of the server to get caught up to you. That's the curse of playing so fast that you skipped everything, or you're in a blessed position where you can play 15 hours a day and you burned through 100 hours of content in the first week because you had the time to play. But that's not normal. That's not average. It's going to be a while before the rest of the server catches up and gets to the point where they can start to farm an excess of titanium. Because for most people, we're 2 weeks into the game right now, as of this recording. So if we're 2 weeks into the game, everyone is still in the process of creating the guild machines that use titanium. There's no excess to be had. Um, Slacker says, Devil's Advocate, I go into the deep desert every day as a solo PvE player, and I have yet to engage with another player. Um, yeah, I mean, it's entirely a decision about what you do at the end game. And correct, War Wizard, that comment is false based on purely on the fact that Plastinium is not required for PvE at all. It's a PvP tier gear, and it's not something you have to worry about as a PvE player. Like I said, it goes to the FOMO thing of like, um, you know, people think they need something and they really don't. Um, so you do not have to do PvP if you don't want to at all. It is not required by the story of the game. The deep desert, and again, The Lands Rad is made up of, there's like 400 activities that can spawn into the Lands Rad. Many of those activities have nothing to do with the deep desert. Like the kill quests and stuff, you could do all of those in the Haga Basin. Like to kill the Atreides and Harkonnen and like the deserters and stuff. That's all Haga Basin. You do not have to participate in the deep desert if you don't want to. PvP is not required in this game. It's a choice you make. And if you're going to go into the deep desert, then yes, you're probably going to want to eventually work on getting that tier 6 gear with the titanium. But that's a choice you make. It's not required by the game. It's not required by the story. So this concept of what was the comment again? I got to go back and read the exact comment. I got to share it on screen. There is so you're forced to PvP to finish the game. False statement. False statement. You're not forced to go do PvP to finish the game at all, in no way, shape, or form. So, FYI, public service announcement. You don't have to do PvP in this game if you don't want to. But if you have FOMO, FOMO is a you thing, not a me thing. I don't have that.